Have you been looking for something loud, funny, candid, and raunchy? Well, you're in luck, baby. This is Drag from the Left. Drag from the Left. A weekly digital series where we discuss RuPaul's Drag Race and socio-political issues from a radical leftist perspective. Black queer feminism. Yeah, we talk about it, but we have fun. One of the most unique podcasts on the internet. This is Drag FTL. And here are your hosts, a drag queen and educator, Juanita Bindum, and a historian and writer with their Masters in American Studies, Avery Ware.
Hey everybody, we are back for another week of Drag from the Lab. Insert sound effects. How you feeling, Avery?
I am good. I'm glad to be back. We missed a week because, I was under the weather. It wasn't COVID. Miss Delta ain't in my house. But I am glad to be back. I'm excited. I had a lot to say about last week that I didn't get a chance to talk about. So I'm ready for this episode.
I'm ready too. What are we going to be talking about this week?
So today we are going to get right into community. Today I want to talk about community and I want to talk about family. Those we're forced into and those we get to choose because as queer people, as RuPaul loves to say, as gay people, we get to choose our families.
Oh, girl, shut up.
That's so fake and contrived, girl. But it's a tinge of truth in there. As queer people, we do get to choose our communities and we do it very earnestly. Quite honestly, anybody and everybody can choose their communities, but queer people were kind of forced to just because of the stipulations that, is American society.
Well, Avery, Juanita wants you to know that I choose you.
I choose you back.
Pikachu, I choose you.
So the theme for this week's episode was inspired by Raja O'Hara's story, how she talked about her relationship to her mother and her family, and not wanting to share too much on camera because that is a big thing. Like when she in that moment really touched, I think, the both of us when she was talking to Akaria and Trinity, because we know. Of course, we know we're not monolithic. Black communities are not the same. But we do have a lot of similar experiences. And growing up in our households, they're like, you don't tell our business to the streets. That's just not what we do.
Yeah, that whole what's in this house stays in this house narrative permeates throughout the community.
It does, and it does more harm than good.
Absolutely, because you need to tell.
Yeah, sometimes you got to speak up, right? And I don't want to get too much into it, but when Kylie when someone gave her the advice, like, don't let your inner child make your grown-up decisions, I felt that, but also that inner child is listen to him or her or them, because they can put up some barriers where they need to be some boundaries.
They can see, they can spot what's going on.
Your inner child knows how that person or that thing hurt you, and they won't let it happen again. At least my inner child won't. So I want to dig into it. We usually talk in like the abstract. We talk about themes and theories, but I want to get a tinge more personal.
Absolutely.
So
welcome to the Drag from the Left table talk.
Pink table talk, black table talk,
black table talk.
So tell me, what was your experience growing up as a black and queer youngster, and how did that affect your communal relationships, particularly family?
Yeah, so we teach queers to strengthen themselves. Oh, God, the theme here. So, I remember being a little kid, I could always tell that I was different, right? Which I think could sometimes be like a through line amongst like queer siblings, in the world. I was just like, I'm not quite the same as the other little boys, which we'll talk about later in the episode, makes a lot more sense, But, at first it was more so about me being like, a little sissy, quote unquote, I was gentle, I was soft, I was kind and caring, and that is not necessarily traits that are related to like how they condition little boys to be, you know? And I also played a very like maternal role in my family, even from a young age. Me and my grandmother share this in common, and we talk about it, and it's not necessarily something to be proud of, but something that just exists. But my grandmother and myself became adults at 8 years old, so to say. I grew up with a mother with physical and mental disabilities in a single parent household, and we were dirt poor, and my mother still is. So I had a lot of, responsibilities and forced maturing, that happened. So there was a lot of responsibility placed on me, which did give me a little freedom to kind of flex who I was in some ways. But there was this like unspoken rule, to be like, be yourself, but not too much. You can, we accept Alex being a little queer, a little baby Juanita. You know what I'm saying? Limp-wrist. You could be a little bit, you could be a little limp-wrist, but you need to calm down. I don't know how many times my mother caught me standing on the dining room table singing Britney Spears, Aaliyah. I used to know the Aaliyah choreography, all of that, into a hairbrush. But I felt, for example, I felt soft, kind, feminine in some ways. And, it was taboo and not allowed for me to like play with the little girls. Right. I was like I was like demonized for being a boy because like boys shouldn't be like playing with the little girls. They would try to attach like sexualized reasons to why I couldn't play with the little girl. It was just really, strange. But then I didn't want to do the things that the other boys were doing.
I just wasn't interested.
I wasn't interested.
It
was boring. I thought some of the little boys were like, I like had like child age appropriate infatuation with some of the other little boys. Yeah. Which was weird because I could tell. I was like, I want to be friends with little Carlos the way that Shanita is friends with little Carlos. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I like little Carlos like that, so that was part of that. But immediately as a kid, what it taught me to do was, in order to be and flex who I was, that I had to pick and choose where, and how, which has really kind of permeated into my adulthood of like having a difficult time with vulnerability. Because I used to tell people all the time, like at school, for example, fast forwarding lots of years, I was quote unquote openly gay in high school. One of the only people in my high school. I went to a pretty like progressive suburban high school. Now it's funny, all of these motherfuckers are fucking gay now. They all limp wrist, hair flick, they all
get me started.
Like whack, I am your squad. And I'm just like, okay, girl. It was like me and like 6 other people just in the trenches, and wasn't none of us really friends. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Just recognize each other. It's like, you the queer one, you the queer one.
I see you. And then like romantic interactions happened in secret, and that sort of thing. I was openly gay, and I really did a lot of performing, literally and figuratively, and for the people.
I was going to ask, because that was your thing.
That was my thing. I was like, best singer, actor, dance. I did all the things. I played instruments. I did visual arts. I was on the yearbook. I was like all the things.
Right, but you're talking about performing gender.
Yeah, I was performing. Queer people are often
gender's art performance, by the way.
It is, but like queer people are often like like a caricature entertainment for our heterosexual counterparts that are considered our friends. It took me a long time to like negotiate that and stop. Right. But at home, I pretty much was the type of person. At school, I would be exactly who I was. I was the most authentic version of myself that I could be at that time. Right. I was like 14 through 18 years old. Like, how authentic can one really be? You know what I'm saying? Right. But as true as I was, but then when I got home, I'd open the door and I'd just kind of be like stoic.
Wow.
And chill. What my mother knew of my behavior at home is that I was obsessed with watching television. And I like to stay in my room with my door closed, and occasionally I'd watch TV so late at night that I'd fall asleep on the couch. Like, these were the things.
Wow, why are we the same person?
These are the things. I talked about this the other day, and people reminisce on like how you decorate your room as a kid. Yeah. And I could like cry thinking about it. I never once decorated my room as a child, because to decorate my room as a child was to tell on myself. Yep. To expose the true parts, of me, because I wasn't about to put like wrestlers and NFL football players on my wall. If I could have it the way that I wanted to, like I went to my friend's house and I was obsessed with going to my female friends' houses in high school, because they had these beautiful rooms with like pictures of Madonna and Audrey Hepburn on the wall. And like I probably would have picked some black people, but you get what I'm saying? Like, and they had like frilly bedding, like cute little matching bedding sets and all that different stuff. For me, it was me and my boombox radio, and that's what was in my room. That's all that there was. And I grew up really poor, so it wasn't like I could have some of the things that other people had, but I've always had style. You know what I'm saying? So my room could have had style, but it was you wouldn't have been able to tell my room from anybody else's. That's pretty much how it was. And
how did that affect your relationship with your family, like with your grandmother, with your mother,
so
your brother? Who came later. But.
Yeah, my little brother came later. So it's funny because, I was popular in high school.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I was cool. I was like, I was a little bit of a weirdo, kind of campy, but I was very popular. Everybody knew who I was, and either you loved me or you hated me. I was a contentious topic. And my little brother pretty much inherited my legacy when they got to high school. So I graduated, and then he went in. And I pretty much left a legacy there. My brother got a lot of harassment for having a queer older brother who was no longer in high school. And my brother had a hard time navigating that. We didn't really talk openly about my queerness. It was just something that was. I quote unquote came out to my family at 17. More so they came out to me.
Wait. Well, we're gonna talk about, but briefly, what does that mean for you? They came out to you.
So me and my mother had a very rough thing, and we got into a altercation, and I threw my phone across the room, and it broke into all these pieces, and I left the house, right? And I just assumed the phone was broke. Mind you, this was my phone. I paid for it. It was mine.
Yeah.
And my mother, with her nosy ass, then put Humpty Dumpty back together, charged thine phone. Okay.
She was on a mission.
Activated thine phone card, because it was like a Virgin Mobile
phone card.
It was a Virgin Mobile something. You just get the little activation.
Yes.
Activated thine phone, and then all these text messages started coming in. And boys used to send me naughty pictures. I wasn't sending naughty pictures yet.
In high school?
Yes, I wasn't sending naughty pictures, but I was receiving naughty pictures.
I guess that's really not taboo because there was
that was like 2013.
Yeah, there was plenty of news going around when I was in high school too.
And so my mom is going through the phone, and child, I will leave their name. I know exactly whose weenie came up on the phone. To this day. They don't even know that they done fucking ruined my life.
Okay? Oh, they don't even know.
They don't even know. So the little weenie that came up on the phone.
Like your mom confronted you about this.
I was in the shower. And my mother slides the shower door open with the fierceness. Black
parents love to when you most vulnerable, when you sleeping, when you in the shower, when you eating, they love it when you eating.
They love to just ruin your meal. I mean, she flings the shower door open and she goes, "Alex, I know everything." And I'm like, "Girl, what is you talking about?" I got soap in my eye.
Right. Can I finish cleansing myself?
And she was like, "I saw your phone and those just naughty things in there." And I was like, "Girl, we is not talking about this." I did it. I did it. The conversation. I was like, "Mom,
that's what you got to do."
I'm like, "We're not talking about this."
We're not.
Point blank and the period. But I will say to answer your question is that as it made my relationships with my family like business transactions. Yeah. And that's pretty much how I dealt with my family. There's a lot of other grief and trauma that is not necessarily related or correlated to my gender or sexuality within my family. And I also played a role as a caretaker, as a parent, as a confidant, as a therapist, for my family at large, really.
Right.
But what it did was I deal with them. I tolerate family. I don't really have intimate adult relationships with them. Yeah. Which is something that I've been trying to do now, because I do all these fun things like the podcast or Mixed Juneteenth. Shout out to Mixed Juneteenth. Yes. And these are the things that are happening now, but forever, you know what I'm saying? I've been fellowship programs and grants and all these cool things, and people in my community, my tight-knit family, the people who I choose, they know what's going on. They're present, but I don't invite I remember I was in a show at a local theater here. It was a pretty big deal. It was a world premiere of this amazing Black playwright's work, and I didn't invite them. And at the end of the show, I felt really bad because when we get off stage and we go to meet the crowd, the people that were there were just strangers complimenting me and saying they enjoyed my work. Right. But the other actors, their moms and their grandparents and their siblings were there, and I didn't have that there. But I intentionally didn't invite them because I find myself always trying to avoid the conflict before it happens. You know what I'm saying? I want to be this person, this authentic Alex, and I don't want to hear no comment about it. You know what I'm saying? So I just leave them where they be. We see each other on those days. We eat the chitlins and the collard greens and do the things, and we leave it. We leave it at that. Right. And they really, because I played a parent role. Think about how Black kids are with their parents. Our parents are parents. They're these aloof, mystic beings, right? We don't really dive into often. Some people do, but you don't really dive often into who is we know mom and dad, but who is Samantha? You know what I'm saying? Who is Fred? What type of childhood? What type of friend were they as a kid? What type of partner were they as when they in their dating life? You know what I'm saying? What was the dream that they wanted to acquire that they never quite reached? We don't get those things.
Yeah, before you became a mother, who were you?
So I was like that. I'm like the stoic parental figure, and when I come around my family, they really like put on they all try to be on their best behavior, kind of sort of thing. So it feels sometimes a little empty, a little lonely, because you don't have those. Like, for example, 2 weeks ago, I've been having relationship issues the past 2 weeks. Nothing that's like, oh, horrible, dire, because I'd bring that up. You know what I'm saying? Right. But like I could have benefited from talking to another adult who has navigated being in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? Just talking about navigating conflict and conversation and being vulnerable with yourself. I didn't have anybody to talk to about that. You know, because we don't do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Is we talk. Alex, my family know they asked me for money. They asked me to take them places and to do things.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much how I've operated. And a lot of that has to do with the way that I have hidden myself and the way that I assert myself is like, I do this and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
To protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've built up walls.
you ever watched the game? Tasha Mack was like, emotional walls, girl. Emotional walls.
How about you?
Yeah, this is layered.
Like an onion?
Like an onion, very much so. It's layers you got to peel back, and for the sake of brevity, I won't get into every layer. But I think I really have to preface this by saying that, oh, my voice kind of cracked.
You're getting emotional.
Right. I think I have to preface this by saying that I come from a very religious family. We are Christian, and when I was younger, it was much more strict than it is now. And that's one thing I can say about my family. As they learn more, they adjust, which is cool. But yeah, I was a very angry child, believe it or not.
If you only knew.
Yeah, that's really not that hard to believe, actually. I was a very angry child, and people just kind of chalked it up to, oh, he doesn't have a father, and blah, blah, blah. But another source of my anger was the isolation. Like, I was a young queer kid, and like you said, like, I always knew that I was different. And like, I played the sports. I did all the things, partly because I was angry and that was a way for me to channel it, was the sports.
Right.
But as young black queer kids, and even some adults, there is this particular form of loneliness and isolation that really can't be described unless you live it. Right. So a lot of my anger was a result of that. Like, I couldn't connect to anybody in my family. I had a lot of friends in school, but like, I was different from them, and I always knew. But I had a very tumultuous relationship with my brother, and pretty much most of the men in my family. I had a pretty tumultuous relationship with, and I did this thing where I would respond in a very explosive way. And everyone just chalked it up to, oh, he's crazy, he's angry, we don't know what to do with him, as opposed to trying to understand why my anger is resulting in this explosive reaction, right? I just feel like no one cared, which made me even more angry, right? And much like you, I took on a maternal role in my family, too. My brother was older than me, but my mother worked a lot in order to have a stable household and provide for us. She had to work 2 and 3 jobs for pretty much my entire childhood. So I took on kind of the domestic role, making sure the house was together, the dishes were washed, the bathroom was clean. My brother, he was older, and he is cisgender heterosexual, so he ain't cleaning up behind himself.
And they ain't expected to.
They not expected to. But the thing was, like, my mom always thought that me and my brother worked together to make sure the household was good, which was blinders she put on to make, to make her upbringing seem more rose-colored than it was. But it was me that kept that household running. Like, outside the bills, the domestic part of it, at least on the outside, because I hated yard work, I left that to them. But the inside of it, making sure it was vacuumed and the house was clean and the dishes were washed and the floors were swept and all that, that was Avery. Like, and I was a busy child. Like, I played sports year-round. I was in some clubs in high school. But I made sure when I got home, because I always got home before my mom, throughout my entire childhood, always. But I made sure when I got home for football practice and when I got home for track practice or whatever, I wanted to make sure that she didn't come home to a dirty house. And even after she cooked, I made sure the dishes were, even when it wasn't my turn to wash the dishes, they either weren't washed or weren't washed right. Right.
Okay.
So I had to go back and clean it up. And I just had this conversation recently with my mom, and she was just like, oh yeah, you guys speaking to me and my brother, you guys made sure the house was good and I didn't have to worry about anything. And I was like, and it wasn't no you guys, that was Avery, let's be clear. And she was like, really? I was like, Thomas, you gonna tell her? Like, we've had multiple discussions now that I'm an adult about how it really was in our childhood.
Yeah, you have to have that conversation.
Because family loves to rewrite history.
Don't they?
They love to rewrite
the
history.
ahistorical little vignettes be jumping out.
Girl, one time, I'll never forget this, and I'm not going to say who the family member was, but one time we were sitting at the table, like we were all having this big family. It was like some Memorial Day or some shit. We had to cook out, as black folks do. And it was a table. I was sitting at the table with my mom, my brother. I think my stepdad was sitting there, and then an aunt. I have a lot of aunts, so, both blood and not. I have a lot of aunts, so that's not going to give it away. But I was talking about just kind of the tumultuous relationship, why I was so angry, some of the things that were done to me, not to be, not to, like, play the victim, but in some senses I was. So I was just talking about some of the things that happened to me and why that resulted in some of the things that happened during my childhood. And one of my aunts was like, are you sure that's how it happened? Sometimes we project and we don't remember things right. Just completely gaslighting me. Right. And I was like, girl, y'all love to sit up here and rewrite history as if none of this ever happened.
I got labeled a storyteller. They would tell me that my family was just like, Alex is dramatic,
Yeah.
And by the way, throughout the podcast, y'all, I probably will refer to my little self as Alex because Juanita is free. Okay. And that was not her. She was not dealing with that. Okay. Right. But little Alex was just like, no, I remember what you did to me. Yeah. I remember what happened. You know why I remember? Because that shit was horrible.
Because it happened to me. And now it's my responsibility to deal with these things as an adult. Yeah. So they don't affect my current relationships, my current status, all those things.
Do you think when bringing up those things, like, because, we like negotiate, like I said, like when to talk, when to do what we're going to do, when not. There's like this other theme that comes up is about like this respect that's supposed to happen between like child and parent, child and family, and it follows you until you die, or at least until they do. Like they have to. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like don't say you can't correct, you can't encourage, or like
all you can't advocate for yourself.
All the things that are of course necessary to do as an adult in every situation. Right. But we're not allowed to flex those skills or taught how to do like in family. Mm-hmm. And I think Raja spoke about that in the episode during kind of like what we're doing right now during a table talk. Just about something that she just kept saying. She's like, she kept saying things like not to be disrespectful, or I would try to say it as respectfully as I could. Mm-hmm. And I, during the episode, Trinity was like, well, let's just throw this word integrity out the window. I like to throw the word respect out the window. Like, it's like we need to like name a thing. Yeah. And we need to be able to say it plainly, clearly, and matter of fact. Right. To name it as an experience, it's not always even having to do with like trauma or like something like a parent causing harm. Like, I wouldn't bring up joyful things or things that I was just experienced that I labeled as queer because I wanted to be respectful. I didn't want my queerness to like mess it all up,
right. And the thing is, in a lot of black families, and again, this is not exclusive to blackness, but we're talking about
our experiences. And we both blackity black. Right.
Queerness is deemed disrespectful. Yeah. Like, your identity to them is deemed disrespect, and especially us, like, we're out and we're proud and all those things. If you do not align with very cisgender colonial scripts of maleness and masculinity, it is viewed as disrespect to the family, to the race. Right? Yeah,
to the whole entire race.
to the whole entire, you're disrespecting blackness. Like, girl, there would be no blackness without queerness. Shut up.
And as we talked about before, like, as we believe in the podcast that the experience of blackness is a queer experience.
Exactly. In more ways than one. Yeah. We got time to get into it. That's another episode. But yeah, your identity is seen as disrespectful, or in other terms, because again, religion, sinful. Yeah. I've had this, there was a big blow up a few months ago in my family that was centered around me. And it had nothing to do with my queerness, but of course that always comes up in conversation, especially when there's some kind of conflict or contention. It always falls back on, I've never had a problem with your sexuality and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the fact that you bringing it up this right now when we're not even talking about this, lets me know where your train of thought is. I was like, but you, like, and black people hate the sin, not the sinner, or whatever. And I was like, y'all think that is such a compliment? You think that is so progressive?
It's so
but
rude.
You are calling my identity sinful. You calling me as a person a sin.
Me. I am not a sin.
Avery, you're looking at me saying you love me, but you're calling me a sin.
And then to go a step further, they say like, they always use the scripture that you can come as you are, right? But then you are transformed, and leave anew or whatever. So you want me to just disappear? Or strict, because like to eliminate the sin, you know what I'm saying, is to really be eliminating parts of me. Like you want me not to be me.
I interpret that scripture differently. I came as the person that y'all have constructed me to be, and when I was transformed into a more queer, more free, more liberated self. Right,
but they don't want to hear that.
They don't want to hear that
because Roger mentioned in the episode, is like I felt as if I was an embarrassment.
Yeah,
to her. We were just talking, with a friend here about their family having to move because of not that their parents saw them that way, but other people saw it as an embarrassment and then will harass you, and that was another important thing, which becomes difficult, is that like we need other people to show up for us and to protect us, because this is what I'm experiencing like in my household with people that love me, right? That are pledged with responsibility for me. If this is the type of contention I'm getting there, what do you think the world, is dishing, at me? I need people that, to stand up. And I think now it's a little bit different, like I don't think my mother would allow, definitely not in my presence. I don't know. There's different how people defend you when they're away from you.
Right.
But definitely wouldn't let, none of that, fly now. And I say that because I want to ask, because Raja said in the episode that as a kid, that her and her mom were like tight. They were soul sisters. They were matching outfits. They had them a good old time. Do you notice a juxtaposition between the nice, cute, joyous moments that you can have as a little kid, and then as you start to develop and mature, how the contention starts to arise, out of there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that happens a lot. Like, and our inner child is remembering all these fond memories and how good they made us feel. But as we become an adult and our brains become fully developed, then we get more analytical in our thinking. We start to really analyze those moments and what they meant, and maybe not for ourselves, but for the other people involved, right?
Yeah. I think it's that cis hetero people are like consummate narcissists, and they have children, and they have this idea about who they want them to be, how they want them to exist, what they're going to do, where they're going to do it, at what time, and children are not treated as autonomous human beings, which makes some really weird adults, and we don't do that. Like, for example, Nick Cannon is having kids. Like, Nick Cannon had 12 kids this month.
This story makes my head hurt every time I hear it.
Today. And a lot of his reasoning behind it is that he wants to spread his wealth and to put his blah, blah, blah.
I really hate that patriarchal explanation of having all these fucking kids.
Yeah. And it's
that is just so
your children
asinine.
Are autonomous human beings and are going to be whoever they want to be.
And I explain that to the privilege of having a lot of straight friends is that they live these traditional life, these follow the traditional paths of lifestyles, right? Then they have someone like me,
the two kids and the dog, and
then they have someone like me, like when they talk about their kids or their spouses or whatever, I'm like, your kid's gonna be who they are, and there's really nothing you can do to change that. And if you try too hard, they're gonna resent you for the rest of their life.
And then they go do some shit that actually might not be safe for themselves or others because they just trying to pave a way, and they don't got you you can't be that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I was like, of course, raise them and nurture them and teach them about like respect and integrity and all those things.
You know, kindness and forgiveness. And
yeah, but you cannot control the person that they are going to grow into.
Yeah, and this is like Raja said, you know, as a kid, her mom was best friends and they were really, really tight. And then sometimes her mother would treat her as if she was a complete stranger, you know, and that's because she was. You know, when Raja was not, I'd presume, if I replaced Raja with Alex or little Juanita or Avery, as we became not the person who they prescribed us to be,
right?
That is strange to them. We are a stranger because that's not who they picked. But you don't get to be that. I get to be who I am. We're not, when you're not the little puppet or the image that they created, you know, and projected that's comfortable for them, that just, you know, works and stays inside of the line of comfortability for them,
right?
And they will treat you as strange.
Absolutely. There was a moment in my childhood I was very upset about something. Very, very upset. I'm not going to talk about what I was upset about, but I was pissed. And I kind of like storm. You know when you were a kid and you like kind of storm off and go to your room? I was so mad I had to get up and leave where I was at. And I was amongst family. And that's the thing, too. Like, you don't walk away. You don't storm off. You don't slam doors or whatever.
You don't have emotion.
You don't have any emotion except the ones I tell you to have.
Okay.
But I was pissed. I didn't give a fuck about nothing. I was gone. A family member pulled me aside, and I'm thinking like, okay, they're about to talk to me. They're about to figure out what's going on. Like I have a moment to actually vent and tell them like, what's up? They sat me down and was like, I just want you to know the way you walked out that room was very feminine. Like you were switching, and like they gave me a little like a mock walk of what I was doing, and
an adjustment, a tutorial on how you should be.
And I was like, and in my mind, because of course you can't talk back. In my mind, I was like, oh, so we're not here to talk about what just pissed me off. We're not going to talk about what the harm that was done to me. You are here to structure my response to it to be more masculine, right? And I was just like, what the actual fuck is happening here? Like, no one cares why I'm pissed. Y'all care about the maleness of it all. You care about how I look to other people. You care, and that's what Raja was getting at. Like, I think her mom viewed her as an embarrassment because of how Raja came off to other people and what that said about her mom, right? Some people in my family were more concerned about, and kind of still are, about how other people perceive me instead of like my well-being. Exactly.
And you get that, you hear that a lot, you know, people say, I don't have any problem with, you know, you being, I'm worried about how the world is going to, you know, and it's like the world will have a for everything, you know what I'm saying?
I'm like, fuck the world. What about you? You're talking about you and I.
You ain't told me not to be black, and the world tried to kill me for that right this second.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They love to say that to shield that homophobia, that queerphobia.
It'd be all deep, you know, up in there. But I will say that there is a light.
There is. What is that light?
There is a light. And, you know,
there are several lights.
There's so many lights, and they're all different colors, and they're fluttering around. Yes. But, you know, the light of that is when we forge our own communities, and we find that. And sometimes it can be hard to find. And, you know, this episode isn't like really like forging like the journey and the how-to steps on how to find your chosen family. You know, we could talk about that sometime.
There's no tutorial for that.
There's really no tutorial for it, though. But once you do, you get a space to safely explore and flex being who you are. And it provides you with joy. It provides you with healing, safety. It provides you with a space to like flex your gift, like what you're good at,
right?
You know, and it provides you with a livelihood, you know, without, at least for me, I don't think without having the friends that I have, who my family is very clear about making sure they tell me how I treat them so much better than I treat my family. Like, well, they are my family,
right?
They treat me kind,
right?
You know, I don't think I'd be able to have, you need support to take leaps and to do that. And to make some of the choices that I have made, I've needed, you know, that, and to cultivate, or even the shade and the reads, you know, they let you know when that ain't quite right.
Right. And we need that.
Sometimes you need that. Girl, you sure you want to go out like that?
Right. I had my best friend Christina growing up, like, we made sure we told each other we looked a mess when we looked a mess. Because she would dead ass just be like, that don't look right. Go back and change.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's not right.
I'm like, thank you, girl.
Because why would you want your friend to leave the house and feel comfortable? And then sometimes I just ask a question like, is that what you want to wear?
Yeah.
What type of vibe is you trying to serve?
My friends who, like my childhood friends, it's just, sometimes it's a look. And they're like, what's wrong? I saw this top. It's just these colors. You want to wear those together?
I know you was rushing, but we already late. We already late. It's okay. I will say that with how do I put that? I'm just thinking about example. In this episode, and a couple of the episodes prior, we see this little triad break off.
Yes.
And it's typically Trinity, Raja, and Akira. Mm-hmm. And they have this beautiful little bond that I'm glad they are getting on camera and actually showing in the edit because we know how much they like to leave out of them. Even when they had a real ass conversation about trade, like that was a needed and necessary moment, a needed and necessary moment. And now maybe the community, other people understand. But they were listening and talking and allowing Raja to vent. And, Raja was talking about being in a place now where they like to create, happy memories. Mm-hmm. And for them, it sounds like to do that, they like to have a relationship with their family. And I think many of us do. I think like Dusty Ray Bottom said in the reunion on season 10, because they had a contentious relationship with their family. Mm-hmm. And they said, I had, pretty much along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, that they have made the choice that is necessary for them to live their life that they have now. You know what I'm saying? Right. But if their family would and could get along, they would choose that.
Yeah.
They are content and happy that they are being them true, authentic selves, and that them being that way involves them not being around their family. But if they could have both, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And like, I feel when people say that, I really do. And maybe
it's not an option sometimes.
Yeah, it's not an option sometimes. And maybe I'm just cynical. Like, I have a pretty decent family who but when I was kind of forced to come out, I kind of had a similar situation towards yours. It wasn't a phone or anything. It's like they presented me with something and I had to respond to it, as opposed to me like doing it on my own volition. But I pretty much presented it like, if this is gonna be a problem, I ain't got to be here no more.
Pretty much.
and they got on board. So like, I feel when people say that, but I'm like, if y'all are gonna cause me any strife behind the person that I am, we don't have to do this. Like, we really don't.
Well, that community that I built, that chosen family, really allowed me to be able to give people, I forgot what movie I watched. They called it the fuck you is what it's like. They labeled this thing. And so people have asked me like, Alex, how do you just like be you so like raw and out loud, and like you seem like your family like respects you and you get not that there aren't issues, there's tons,
right?
But like you just out here, you do your thing or whatever. And I pretty much when there was a lot of conflict once I was openly quote unquote gay versus because I didn't change. You know what I'm saying? Like we already knew, but now that we were saying it out loud so other people can hear, I turned the microphone is on.
Right.
I pretty much with my mom and pretty much and currently with people in my family, I made them choose me.
Yeah.
I was going to be this person regardless. I didn't know where I was going to do it at. I didn't know where I was going to be housed. I didn't know. And
all that.
And my community, my friends, my chosen family let me know that you ain't never go. You always go be. Yeah. So I was just walking around with my chest bowed. I'm like, well, look, Ma, if you got a problem with the faggotry, then if it's me or you, it's always me.
Hello.
And I'm always choosing me. And that's what I tell other people to do. Always bet on yourself.
Yeah.
The house always wins.
Yeah. Always choose you. Yeah. And that's kind of where I was at. I came out much later than you did. I didn't come out until I was like 20. I didn't come out until I was like 23. And like in the realm of things, people don't know this. Like in the realm of things, I'm pretty much still a baby gay. Like I really haven't been out that long.
These kids, like little kids, is telling their parents like, I like little Sally Sue. They 7.
Oh yeah, Generation Z. After Generation was Z, whatever.
They
Generation Double A, whatever. Fuck. Double A. I don't know what they're gonna be called. What they
Generation
are
9-volt batteries.
They are just like, this is me. This is who I am. And like, there's a study that like what 40% of the population now views themselves as non-binary in some way.
Yeah, 30 or
Right.
40. It's like,
Yeah.
like, oh, the agenda. No, people have always felt this way. They have always understood.
They just have a language to assign to it now. Right.
We've been out here.
There's never been.
I am so excited for the lines to blur. I want to mix all the paint together because, I dream of a world that is gender free.
Absolutely.
Gender free, gender optional. It don't matter.
I love gender optional.
We
putting that on a shirt. Gender optional.
I stole that from Benji. We're about to get him 5%.
Okay.
Reparations. We get the money.
Yeah.
Like gender where it's just this option and things are so blurred and people can be like, for example. So at Benji's birthday party, right? There are friends, my partner. There are friends who are queer, right? Like they're queer people.
Right.
And then there's people who self-identify, as heterosexual. And this happens in a variety of spaces. But because we as queer folk are almost deemed safe space, quote unquote, for everybody, all of a sudden, this happens across events. All of a sudden, everybody was talking about their little queerness. All of them, the straights, the cis people, they all talking about things that I would consider a queer experience. Just that are against the grain, that are not assigned to what you would consider a typical cis hetero way of living. And I'm just like, all y'all motherfuckers is out here, all of y'all, and then we get to bear the weight,
Right, and because
but it's okay. I'm like, do you see? It's everybody can be life is not just this one little token. It's so many different ones.
Right, and you are restricting yourself by conforming,
clinging and holding on
to these colonial scripts of maleness, masculinity, and sexuality,
relationship structure and patriarchy,
and family structure and all that.
Vocabulary,
that's a very restrictive and repressive way of living, and it's one that I choose not to partake in.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So, Avery's building their family, their little nugget, right? And this doesn't have to mean children. This could be the dog and your 5 Liberace dressed partners. I know,
not 5
in your compound. What are the values that exist in your family? The one that you are going to create.
If I decide to create one, I might just thug this thing out alone the rest of my life.
I mean, that works too.
Right. But if I do decide to have a family in whatever structure that I deem, the values will be community, they would be respect, they would be accountability, they would be integrity, they would be kindness, not niceness, kindness.
Yeah, because we don't do nice.
Right, which is a very integral part of your character. As opposed to the surface politeness that really has no attachment. It's very surface. So I think those would be the foundation. And those things that I just named were a lot of the foundation that I was raised on, like integrity, respect, community. Those are a lot of things that my mother raised me and my brother on that I've just continued throughout my life. And I have a different iteration on them than my mother did because I have different experiences. But, fundamentally they're the same. Yeah. What about you?
I think for me, I want a family where creativity is encouraged and nurtured. Because I think about a lot of my creativity was not nurtured and stifled at a really young age because it was ascribed to my queerness.
Right.
My little brother, for example, is an athlete and has had a lot of success as an athlete at a school level, at a collegiate level. They are talented. They're a talented athlete. They are the best that they physically can be at the sport that they play. That doesn't mean that they're like NFL but they're the best that they can be at the sport that they do.
Your brother is very good.
He's he can beat you up. Okay.
Yeah.
My little brother's a wrestler, and and
he's very he's very quiet and laid back, and
then just start throwing you all over the place. He's trained with Olympic gold medalists. He's learned a move that only 6 people in the world has successfully done in competition. I didn't get that with my music and my theater and my art.
Right.
And the talent was there.
Right.
But the nurturing wasn't. And even if it's something that a kid only wants to do for a little while, if your kid want to tap dance for 6 weeks, then whatever.
Make sure that's the best 6 weeks of his life.
The best 6 weeks of your life. That way at the end that you really didn't want to do it.
Right.
And And of course, I'm not saying it's like willy-nilly be wasteful and all of that, you know, but like really encourage people to really fulfill it, explore. I want to encourage a space where people are inquisitive and curious about themselves. I think that's a good thing. We always like the curiosity killed the cat, you know. It's like, no,
kind of encourage growth.
Yeah, you know. When you're curious about yourself, there's like literally no way to fail because you start answering questions. Like, do I like this? And then those questions.
First, you start asking the questions.
You ask questions.
And then you might find the answer.
They become answers, and these are good things. And that's really the big basis of it. And I want to explore love differently than we've been taught that love is. Yeah. You know, Lauryn Hill, you know, talked about it in that speech she did for some school, just about how we don't really experience unconditional love. We are always really taught that the way that we are loved is really dependent upon what we can do for someone else.
Yeah.
And I want to experience and give the type of love that is just solely based on your existence.
Yeah.
I love you because you are.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to share that with you. I want to encourage that. That's really that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's something we've been deprived of as queer people.
So much of it, you know, and it makes you lonely, you know, and
unique kind of lonely.
But
Toni, I always quote Toni Morrison. No, that's my favorite.
You was just listening to her.
I was just listening to her, Toni Morrison and Beloved, when it was because you know. Different characters speak at different times, which makes Beloved such a hard read for some people. But when Beloved was actually speaking, she said it was a very poetic and like moving piece about loneliness. It was like there's a loneliness that I'm gonna paraphrase: there's loneliness that steals and there's loneliness that kind of roams and it never kind of goes away. Yeah. Right. So I think it's beginning of chapter 14 or something like that. It is. And that's what kind of like the queer experiences. And when people say that Toni Morrison don't have no queer characters in her books, you need to read a little bit more closely because that is a very queer understanding of living.
Well, your mother, you talked about your it's okay to talk about it on the pod. You said your mother often worries that you're going to like grow up old and alone, which I think is also like a cishet worry too. Just like, you ain't got no why.
It is. Yeah. We talked about this like off air, but my mother is very concerned about me being lonely.
And you responded to her with a very specific quote. And
what I say?
You said that to be black and queer in America is to be lonely.
Yeah, I said
in some way.
I said that's part of the gig, girl. Like, being black and queer in this world, being lonely is a part of the gig. That's what comes with it. And she looked so sad, but I was just like, it's really okay.
But like this type of work that we're doing and that we're discussing, the work that Raj is navigating through on the episode, like it doesn't always breed really clear, concise answers because the issues that cause it are quite complex.
Very.
But it does get us a little step closer to feeling a little more like we're held. You know, and that there's home and that there is other people like you that there. And my very favorite Maya Angelou quote is that, you know, we're more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. You know, and she says it twice on purpose. You know, she got to say it again because people don't get it. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike, and it kind of takes us in that way. But some of those things, I know we go get there, has to come from hardcore structural change. Yeah, like
that's
abolition.
Difficult. Right. That is difficult. It is hard work, but it is necessary work. I feel like I've said that multiple times. It's hard work, but it's necessary work because it's real. So we talk about abolition, we are leftists, and we always want to tie it back to some educational piece that we can take away, right? We talk about abolition, and many people think about it in terms of like slavery and prisons and police and all that, which is great and necessary, and
that's a part of it,
right? But abolition is also a practice, not just a politic, right? It's something that can be employed in every part of our lives, right? The sustainable community is the accountability, the nurturing relationships, the community responsibility, the preventing and responding to harm that has to look different, that is not purely punitive, right? Those are things that can be employed in our families, whether that is a traditional nuclear family, which really needs these principles of abolition.
Like really
need, right? Or that could be the community we choose, right? There can be those kind of principles of abolition can be employed
to all the relationships
and any and everything that you do, right? And the more we kind of align with those things, the more we can change, and restructure the world towards safer for all of us and not just some of us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Speaking about some of us, shout out to all my non-binary and gender non-conforming people out here. Insert sound effect here. It is, well, when this episode comes out, it'll be past, but I think all holidays should be celebrated. These type of holidays should be celebrated all the time.
Right.
Okay. But it is Non-Binary Awareness Week. Wednesday was Non-Binary Awareness Day. And Juanita Bindem is a non-binary individual, not man or woman, just am. And snap.
You ever seen The Good Place?
I've seen The Good Place.
I love Jen, and when she always has to correct, not a woman, not a girl. Love that. Okay. I love that queer understanding of that character.
There's really not. Okay. And we have to say it all the time because we prescribe just like with our eyes what we see and then point and label and do that. But it is Non-Binary Awareness Week. We want to do a shout out to all of our listeners and all of the beautiful people out there that identify as non-binary, gender non-conforming, trans folk. Non-binary people a lot of us identify as trans also. We are all underneath this umbrella together.
Absolutely.
And I want to say shout out to all of you for being your bold self. I want to say shout out to those of you that are working on understanding your gender and exploring it. I want to say shout out to those who know and haven't told anyone. All of us in it. It's for all of us. It's all valid out there. So however you live with your existence and your experience, we should shout out to you on this podcast because we fucks with that.
We sure do.
Yes. Speaking of being non-binary, and we just did these like pseudo coming out stories. I've existed this way like actively for a couple years now, and my day job that I have now has really when I started being a lot more active as an organizer. I did a fellowship program, and it was the first time I had been surrounded so densely with so many Black queer folk. Going into it, I thought it was gonna be a whole bunch of straight organizers, and there were straight organizers there, but everybody there was so queer. And like I was like trans people, and I had never heard of nobody like having top surgery before, and people just like fuck the shit. Like I was like, oh my God. And this is when I wore a skirt in public. And everybody was telling me how sickening. I was like, yes, bitch, work, mama, you better. And then some people said nothing because it wasn't weird to them.
Right.
I was like, this is who I am and want to be.
Yes.
And then I worked at a job that's a queer organization where it's like, you can be whoever you are. And I hold them to it. I am they, them, bitch.
Right.
I've been exploring that with a lot of people in my relationships, with my friends, my intimate relationships with my partner. My partner's also non-binary, and trans and non-binary. And it's just a wonderful experience. But as we talked about earlier, these walls that we build up with our families, I'm trying to integrate my life a lot more and just be the full me, even with people who I maintain a very small or a very specific type of relationship with, right? Because I feel like when I draw these boundaries, I only carry part of myself to the meeting, and I want to go, I want to take the whole basket everywhere I go. So with that being said, we have a family group text with just my cousins, and there's 13 grandkids, and our parents kind of got their own drama, which keeps us apart from each other. Right. So at the top of COVID, we decided, and it's a wide age range. There's little cohorts that all match the little kids, so we all old enough to be in the group text. I think the youngest one of us now was like 13 or something like that. So everybody's in the group text together, and we can talk about whatever pretty much. We don't put anything pornographic in there most of the time. So I just sent a message to the group text that was like, hey, everybody, it is International Non-binary Awareness Week. And in case you didn't know, this is like how a lot of people identify their gender, including myself. And I said, my name is Alex, not Alexander, and I'd like you all to use they, them pronouns when talking to me and other gender neutral language. And I attached a couple like articles and like some base level articles.
Right.
And
you gotta start small.
Yeah, so I was like, ooh, child, I can't start talking about, I was going to hit him with the neo pronouns. I was like, well, we just slow down. Slow down. So I hit that, and they sent love to me. A lot of them. The ones that I expected to did, and some of the ones that I didn't. And even the ones that didn't respond, like I said it.
Right.
Out loud.
Right.
And my cousin said something to me that made me just like, I kind of got a little misty. They said, hi, Alex. Nice to meet you.
Aww.
And I was like, just died inside, And this is also my cousin who, when they came out as pansexual, they messaged me to like talk about their queer experience and like how should they come out? How do they tell people? Navigating being mostly identifying as a cisgender man and being in a relationship with a cisgender woman, but not being heterosexual.
Yeah.
And this is not like they're not two-timing their girlfriend or nothing like that. They love their girlfriend in a loving relationship, but they're not attracted to her because she's a woman, and they also are attracted to people that aren't.
Right.
And they want to just be honest about that or whatever. And I didn't have that. Right. But because of how I've been able to we've been able to give each other some things that we didn't have, before, which I think is beautiful.
Right.
A part of family. My little brother is in this group text and he did not respond. So I waited a day and I messaged him separately because my little brother's, he's an anxious little creature.
Yeah.
Everything's on the mat. And I said, "Did you see the message?" And he said, "Yeah, I saw it. I stay on top of all that shit for you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, I read the little articles. I get it." Or whatever. I was like, "Okay." I was like, "How do you feel about it?" He was like, "I don't care. Be whatever you raised me. You could do whatever you want to do. I love you." Right. So then I was like, "I have to ask you a question that might be kind of hard for you. I'd like you to stop calling me your brother. I'd like you to call me sibling." And so we practice saying it back and forth. He was like, "This shit weird. I'm gonna just call you Alex." Which calling people by their names is a great tactic to use when getting used to it. But I also let him know in this way. Some people there's people who I extend more grace to than others. Right. And my little brother can get a lot more grace than I give to some people. So we'll practice it. And it's something that I did that to help advocate for myself and other non-binary people. I told my family, my cousins in the group text, that this is not a secret and you're allowed to talk about it with other people.
Right.
And I encourage you to. One is some PR for myself. It's less people I have to individually come out to. But I understand it. I get it. Right. Even on a level, and not all black people are on top of critical race theory, and you know what I'm saying. But I happen to be a person who has a political motivated job. All three of them. Right. You know what I'm saying. I understand about non-binary existence and gender nonconformity on a historical level, on a theoretical level. Yes. So I had those conversations a little differently, but so I don't really need that type, but they can start having these inquisitive conversations with each other and start working through different things within themselves, with friends and other people that they know. There's tons of non-binary people out there that aren't myself that I'm certain at some point they are, if not in contact with, will be. And then I put some articles in there, and a lot of those articles be written for people that are not the existence that the article is about, because they too basic level for the people that's experiencing it.
Yeah, those articles, and that's, I know because I write these.
You write these articles?
Right? They're really ever for me.
Right.
They're to teach. That is a part of me being an educator. That's a part of those people who have a desire to educate, whether they identify as an educator or not. Those articles are to teach someone. It's very each one teach one, which is cliche, but actually a very good pedagogy to live by.
It is.
Pedagogy just means a method of teaching.
Yep.
A very reductive
the art form of teaching. So I had that experience this week, and I was really excited that I was able to relate to my family with more of my queerness. There's so many ways to come out, and we're coming out all the time. It's exhausting. I wish it would go away. So when we live in this genderless world, this coming out would no longer be necessary.
I wrote something a few years ago that it was just Facebook status. That was it was National Coming Out Day, and I was like, this is cute and all, but I actually hate this day. I hate the day. I celebrate it for people who need it and want it. I was like, I actually hate the concept of coming out, right? Which is I was going to talk about during the segment, just briefly, is that I don't come out anymore. My pronouns have changed, and my brother and my mother only found out my pronouns to change when they viewed a talk that I was doing. I was on a panel, and my pronouns were in the little box. And my brother was like, "I had no idea your pronouns were he, they." And I was like, "I don't give a fuck. That's why you don't know." I'm not announcing this shit to nobody. I'm not going to defend myself to nobody no fucking more. I was like, it just is what it is. I recognize coming out as a very colonial construct.
It is.
It's a game I'm choosing not to play. And I am what I am. I feel similarly about pronouns. And this is not to dilute or reduce the importance of pronouns. They are very important to a lot of people. I'm talking about for Avery.
Right.
They don't matter. For me, they don't matter. I don't think a white supremacist colonial language ideology can encompass
it doesn't wrap up who you are.
It doesn't fit. It will never fit. I'm not trying to fit it. So whatever.
Yeah. And these words don't fit picture perfect, particularly for people of color. Yeah. They're a close.
Right. And they were never intended to fit. Like, colonists and white people, them bitches, like, when they were creating the ideas of man and woman and femininity and masculinity, black people were never in mind. You were a beast, you were property. Which is why the black experience is a queer experience. But whatever. So yeah, I just don't do it. I feel like it's very reductive, and it really plays into this white supremacist kind of like tenet of binary thinking, which reduces very complex ideas and elements.
You sent me that amazing Twitter thread, and if I can find it, we should retweet it again on the
Yes, and I was just going to mention it. I'm glad you brought it up because
people say I get sick of people saying this. They be like, non-binary is like, so you got like man over here and woman over here, and like non-binary is like somewhere in the middle.
Yes,
and it's really not. And then like we talk about people's like presentation, which is a lot different. People will. First off, clothes don't really have a gender. You know what I'm saying? You know, whatever. We make, you know,
I
we
can
make
take them off and put them back on.
Please just tell me if there's a pouch in the front or not. That's really all I need to know.
All I need you to do is make big boy sizes. That's it.
Thank you. Look, and I don't mean just 36 either. I mean, we need to be going all the way. And they need to have colors and frills and deep cuts. I want the whole
different constructions because people's bodies are built different. Like right. I am built weird.
The clothes that our mass-produced clothing doesn't have enough variance in general. Right. You know, like. But
that's the only thing I care about in clothes. Fuck the gender.
But it was just talking about like for me, and this Twitter thread also talks about this. We have to make sure we retweet this. Check it out on Twitter. It'll be there eventually. My non-binary existence is the closest language I can get to just reject the binary system in general, because to put me in the middle still implies like the two gender, system. Yeah. I'm not. Like I said, man, or I don't see that. That's not how I identify.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It feels, and to do it that way feels as dysphoric as calling myself a man. Like it's no, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that Twitter thread also talks about non-binary is not an identity but an ideology.
Exactly, and
that's how I view non-binary. Like I don't label myself non-binary, but I guess in the definition in the realm of non-binariness, I'm somewhere in there. But that's how I view non-binary. Like it's a very ideological, it's a practical thing for me as opposed to just an identity, right? So I use he, they pronouns, but I would literally respond to each and every one because I don't care. I personally don't care. Don't assign that to other people who...
and like you said, the language is also, it is for us, but it's also for the other people. Because like in the grand scheme of things, my pronouns, which... Y'all I'm just say it again. Don't be playing no games. When people tell you to call she, he, they, whatever it is, you call them with the pronouns that they tell you to call them as, point blank in the period, or you get dusted.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, for me, I don't really care. The pronouns are not that major in the grand scheme of things, but I have to use them because it forces other people to stop seeing me as male. Right. When I force them to use they, them pronouns, because they won't. When they're not just using what's convenient, or like maybe it's even related to the energy I'm serving. Because some days I be feeling real pussy, you know what I'm saying? Right. But in some days, like because of my role as a caregiver to my family, I've had to play these archetypes as dad, as mom, as fixer, as confidant, as like these roles. They also get ascribed gender, right?
Yeah.
But if I don't use them, people will use the language. Like, for example, people will she and her and girl me and sometimes be playing games. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, trying to be shady.
And I don't like that. And then people will he me and then not even see and discredit my identity, my gender not being male.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The same thing happens in reverse. Because I am pretty masculine presenting, but like the nails are painted, I wear hoops, sometimes I wear skirts or whatever. And I think one is kind of cute, but people will just be like, so what are your pronouns? And I'm like, whatever one you want to call me. And they'd be like, oh, ha, 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 like nervously laughing, and I'm like, no, I'm dead ass. Like, I don't care.
My coworker uses all three now because of this. And this is a part of the evolution, I think, of their identity as a trans and non-binary person. Just about it all somehow ends up getting real colonial at some point. Like, it gets also like at some point, the language just somehow, the further we try to run away from it, the white supremacy, the caucasity just attaches. And I'm like,
I don't have time for this lesson right now. Like, if this happens at the bar, at a function, whatever, I'm here to have a good time, girl. I'm trying to give you a lesson on colonial constructs.
Leave me alone. So they use she, he, and they pronouns. So he uses them all, she uses them all, they uses them all. You know, well, and not just all, is that those are like an exhaustive list of pronouns, because there are lots of other pronouns.
Right.
But these three they use, you know, interchangeably, and expect you to switch them up because yes, brain fuck these people.
Yeah, one of my good friends, Kyle Kidd, and I'm not opposed to saying his name on the podcast because that's my friend.
Also, stream their music online.
Yeah, but I say support Kyle Kidd music. They're going on tour. But they use all pronouns. They're very open, saying that they use all pronouns. Right.
They're such a transcendent being.
Yes. Some of my other friends do the same. Some of my friends, when I met them, use strictly he pronouns, and now they're like, I use all pronouns, which is really dope to see. Like, you know, people change and evolve, and identities change, and you know, you got to roll punch, girl.
We do got to roll, and I think we need to take a moment and roll on out to a break.
Yes, let's take a break.
We'll be back. Thank you for tuning in to Drag from the Left.
You're listening to Drag from the Left with Juanita Bindum and Avery Ware. We'll be right back after this break. We're back to Drag from the Left. If you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, or asexual, this is your home. This is your home. Now your hosts, Juanita Bindum and Avery Ware.
Hey there, everybody. If you're tuned in, you are listening to Drag from the Left, your weekly digital series where we discuss RuPaul's Drag Race and political issues from a radical leftist perspective. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the very Reverend Dr. Juanita Bindum.
And it's Avery. I was gonna do like, it's your boy, Avery. I hate when people introduce it like, it's your boy, shut up. What is your name?
What is your name?
Hey y'all, it's Avery. Welcome back.
Ooh, so we were just talking about how, you know, not man nor woman, just am, or non-binary existence.
Yes.
And that, you know, has been really prevalent. The past couple of seasons, you know, Drag Race has been trying to do like, oh, we're with the gender stuff now. We're diverse. Even though they know that's a crock of bullshit. Steaming hot pile of boo-boo.
Yes, we talked about that episode 1 of season 2.
Okay, so go stream that if you haven't. It's available everywhere podcasts are streamed. And watch our YouTube, because people don't go on our YouTube and subscribe, because we do have a YouTube version. I know a lot of people like to listen to stuff through YouTube because it lets you multitask. So we do upload the episodes to YouTube, and then there, if you need captioning, there's captions that are available for you to help you understand what we're talking about. Boop boop boop. And Akira talked about on the episode that they were a woman.
Yeah,
Kiki.
which I did not know.
But this is something that we're seeing that a lot of the queens on the show, right?
Because Eureka has the same experience.
Yeah, and it's probably others, you know, too. And we can't. I would say that the construct of the show being presented as female performance art that is typically done by men, like the Ru style of drag, is why a lot of people, because like these are beautiful narratives. I could not imagine going on national television on like the biggest queer Emmy Award winning television show and not talking about these things.
Right.
And I'd assume that it's because they probably feel like it's correlated to their success on the show. Like somebody like got Mick auditioned 3 times and then didn't get on until just now. We know the experience that Peppermint has had on the show, and other trans contestants. We know that Eureka,
Monica Beverly Hills shared her story.
Yeah, Jiggly Caliente. Like, just so many people that came back later. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's not to say that, yes, people explore their gender through the performance art of drag, right? But like, it's hard to be. There's misogyny that plays here, you know, especially
misogynoir.
Yeah, that plays in that. That happens on the show. But I was really glad to hear that Akira, you know, talked about their identity, and then it brought up the conversation too of like detransitioning. And gender has multitudes, and we contain them, you know, and people are many things. And she has that fabulous big old butt, you know, but. Akira also identifies as a non-binary person, and so does Eureka, and so does Ginger Minj, as they talked about in Untucked. So it was just like bam, 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 and I was just, I loved it. I loved to hear and to see that non-binary people, particularly people who still present in the binary, have a hard time with people accepting their identity both of us really, because I guess I dress often in a way that I can still be perceived as male. And I'm not, and then we got to be careful that, like, I am not male passing. I'm not trying to be seen as male. I'm just wearing what I feel cute and comfortable in.
Right.
Also, clothes are expensive. I do plan on doing a complete wardrobe overhaul, but like, it'll happen as it happens.
Yeah.
And
Gotta have the coinage.
well, you can pay us, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And go on there, click the link in the bio and donate some money.
Yes.
But again, I understand that. But once again, shout out to all my beautiful contestants on RuPaul's Drag Race that identify as non-binary and gender non-conforming and transgender. It is nice to see so much like non-cis representation on a television show.
It's a beautiful delineation of, we are not just men that are performing or being an exaggerated form of cis womanhood.
Right. And if it's a gender performance art, that includes all
genders. Right. It is a very, I think it's teaching their audience, who is very young, the complexity of gender.
It is complex.
Which I love.
And we do difficult things all day, every day. Things change. We change.
We learn new things every single day, and we adjust accordingly.
Get with it. Get with it. Speaking of getting with it, let's talk about this episode. Let's see what is going on. So this week's challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race, they had to do the pink table talk. They were broken off into teams, and RuPaul assigned them to pick their own teams, which is a little bit of a scary little moment, because to not get picked. But
I get secondhand anxiety. I'm like,
oh my god. So our groups end up being, there's 3 different groups. Group 1 is Eureka, Akira, and Trinity K. Bonet. We also have a group that has Raja O'Hara, Scarlet Envy, and Kylie Sonic Love. And then our final group has
Ginger, Pandora, and Jan.
Yep. So those are the 9. And, some groups are more successful than others. I do think it was a complicated challenge.
Very.
Because they were, I couldn't tell if they were supposed to be like being more character, or they just wanted to do like a really produced like trauma porn like sob story, which is really,
Drag Race loves,
which is really what it felt like. Because Scarlett got poor critiques on the runway because it didn't read well in the way that they edited it, because she was still doing like Scarlett character, but she's supposed to be talking about like herself. Like, it's confusing.
Yeah.
And then Rue, told her on the runway that she doesn't feel like, it was like your boy self and then your Scarlett self, and you haven't found a happy medium between the two. And it's like, well, girl, you like tell me which one you want and how you want it. And also, like, Rue's really weird, like a pseudo like fake psychologist. It's just like, you have the power you have in drag outside of drag, and like Rue just would like to retire and not do drag anymore, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
but that's a problem with celebrity culture. People with influence and money think that they are more intelligent than they are, and speak on things they have no idea what they mean.
Yeah, and then like the asinine as
up.
Judging rules, like it's just like it gets a little weird.
The benchmark is routinely moved depending on who they talking about.
Yeah, it moves around, and it's so weird. And we
Don't get me started.
We gotta get bitchy on the episode. But B last night was like, oh, so I get how you're successful on Drag Race. So if you oh god, if you have a mental health diagnosis, you need to act like you don't. And if you do, you need to act like you do have one. It's just like, they want you to be the complete just polar mental opposite of whoever you are.
RuPaul wants you to be as fake as RuPaul.
Yeah, if you have a personality disorder, don't act like you don't have one. And if you don't have one, act like you do. It's like,
then we can add that to your story.
And then we can add it to your story. It's just like, what do you want? You don't know what you want. You do know what you want. You just want to like make good TV, which treats us like shit.
Exactly. You want different things based on who you're talking to or talking about.
Yeah, the rule is all the way around, which is interesting in the judging of the television show. So our top group of the week is Trinity, Akira, and Eureka, which in my opinion was the stronger group.
Absolutely.
The strongest
by far.
group. There was the only one that was like mastered the art of being like conversational.
Yes.
Talking about things they really experienced, but through their drag character, which I'm glad they figured it. And at first it started a little slow, and I was like, okay, I think I get what we need to do here. Yeah. Because they're not told what they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
figure
saying?
it out on their own. It was a very good balance.
Good balance. And the looks were right.
I love their intro lines. I love Trinity. She was like, she said something, but be careful what you tell me.
I'm messy. I really liked that line. So they were super cute. And then Eureka called herself an asshole. So that was spot on. Self-awareness, baby. But the winner of the week was Ginger Minch. Do we agree with the winner this week?
I have feelings. I think the winner should have been derived from the winning group.
Agreed.
Ginger did well. Like, she was the only saving force Like, she was only saving grace of that group, in my opinion.
But her solo performance wasn't better than the winning team.
I don't think she did so. I don't think she did so well.
Avery just knocked the headphones
Sorry,
off.
all my headphones came off. Hold on. Okay, play. I don't think she did so well that she can be counted the winner and she wasn't a part of the winning group. I think the winner should have been derived from the winning group. But I also think, much like last week, they would have probably had to give Trinity the win based on the performance and the runway.
This is why they keep doing this, because then Trinity and Raja would have too many wins. And they can't do that.
Yeah, because Trinity really should have won last week too.
Yeah, and then Raja should have won Talent Show week.
Yep.
Like, it's just like, it's just, you know. So Jan lands herself in the bottom. Scarlett lands, unfortunately, themselves in the bottom. And there is no shame in me saying on the podcast that I'm not talking about Jan as a, you know, I think everyone deserves success. But in terms of the competition, I'm ready for Jan to go.
I think, I think most of us
Jan
are.
could have went the week that Akira and Suki were in the bottom.
Yeah, dead ass.
She could have went for me.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago. Because she hasn't really served.
This is the second time she did the worst in the challenge, and she had a terrible runaway.
Yeah. Okay. So let's speed round Saint and Center. What's your top Saint of the week?
My top Saint of the week, from this week and last week, really, is Akira C. Davenport.
Creativity.
She eats. Oh my god, she
does this on a budget that's not as large as some of the other working girls.
Yes. It is creativity. It is it's just pure talent and taste. Like, she has it. And my center this week is Jan.
Yeah, Jan's look was a mess.
Did you see what's that damn review show? The Pit Stop.
Oh, Kennedy. First, it was funny to see Kennedy and Trixie on something together, because, you know, Kennedy and Trixie got drama, and Kennedy was like, it's nice to see you too, girl.
She was like, we gonna be fake? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, she was ready. She's like, it's good to see you too.
Mm-hmm. You can tell she was kind of over it, and then as I got into it, she got more involved.
Kennedy did like Trixie, but Trixie did some fake ass shit for television,
right?
And that's what. And
I watched. Literally, I was bored, and I was watching the highlights of All Star season 3, and Trixie was like
every second she got,
she was shitting on a lot of the black queens.
I bet you she feels bad now that what's her name has passed away, and she was saying she said similar things that she said about Kennedy.
You have to watch what you say. Watch how you treat people, because you never fucking know. And I say this all the time, because you never know when it's your turn. And I'll say this all the time, not to be all morbid, talk about death, but I say all the time, if you want to be remembered well, you have to live well. Yeah. So you got to watch how you treat people.
Yeah, because rest in peace, Chi Devane, and she was, whatever.
Yes, but back to the pit stop. Kennedy, and this is the part that took me out, because I was thinking the same thing when she turned that corner. Why are some damn purple leggings, stockings,
the stirrups didn't make any sense?
Why are they tucked into that white heel,
into the white stocking?
That's why you need black friends. Clearly told you not to do that shit.
If she had just left the socks and the shoes, it might have been okay. If she had just left the socks and shoes, but also I don't think she should have had a white sock and the white. It didn't look right. And then the shopping bags, I didn't understand what the shopping bags were supposed to do. And then she kind of had like this pseudo black girl hairdo. Like, that to me was like a very kind of
yeah.
And
she needs to go.
I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And if
I don't think anyone did.
No, and then like the side zip, and it was like this weird pattern. It looked like it was made over from leftover fabric, which is fine, but it wasn't sickening.
It needs to make sense. And there were elements. I kind of see where she.
Do you agree with Michelle Visage? Oh my God, let me find $1 bill somewhere and go buy a lottery ticket. But she was also confused. She was like, I'm confused about what it was trying to give, because it needs to make sense, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't
make any sense.
And this is like the patterns runway, and you do like these little wavy little things like.
Right, and it wasn't clash of the pattern. Like, there was different pattern.
There was no pattern clashing.
There was no pattern clashing. And like, this is the same thing with that ugly ass runway with the sports fabric that she made into a gown. It don't make sense, girl. Like, I've said this every week since we've been recording this season. Like, I'm very confused about Jan, because I think Jan is confused about Jan.
Jan is confused about Jan, and Jan just to believe it's pretty much like that basic like white exceptionalism. Only have to give a 7 to deserve a 10.
I can skate by purely on my whiteness.
Yeah, and it's like you're doing a good job, but you're not doing exceptional. So I think you should have some concept that you're not being exceptional, right. Even if you want to be. And no one's saying you're a bad drag queen, but you're not performing on the level of the other girls.
And then you have someone like Akira who is turning it. Like, and I don't think she should have been in the bottom last week, and I don't agree that she should have been in the bottom. She was in the bottom this week. No,
she's been in the bottom 3 times.
Yeah, I don't think there was 2 times, I can't remember which episodes, there were 2 times where I don't believe she should have been in the bottom. She's eating these runways. Some of the challenges are, sticky, but not. There are people much worse. Like, I think Pandora's very middle of the road.
She's not being the Pandora I'm used to seeing. I like Pandora can give like a really fun performance that she hasn't been. And her runways are always going to be shaky.
Up until this week, Ginger was not giving me what she's supposed to have gave. Ginger really couldn't been in the bottom 2 or 3 times. Same with Eureka.
Yeah. But they're saving them because these are the top bill queens. And like, I understand that, but like, Simone was the winner of RuPaul's Drag Race season 13 and almost saw herself out the door twice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Now, we understand this is a TV show, but like, listen, are we going to judge it fairly or not? And I know we not, but like.
There's no way to.
Yeah.
Well, not underneath the current system of the show. Hopefully there's more shows coming out. Coming out down the pipeline. There's another show coming out in the U.S. that's a drag-centered television show.
Peppermint, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be that. Manila started another franchise in the Philippines. We also have Dragula, which is a totally different vibe, and there's going to be a pop star, like a singing competition for a drag artist, because so many drag artists incorporate their vocal abilities into the drag competition, and they don't really do well on shows like American Idol and The Voice and stuff like that. And actually, all the time they're like disproportionately treated really shitty on those shows.
Right.
So that's the way the cookie crumbles. So the bottom 2 this week is Jan and Scarlett.
There's 3. Sonica's and Kylie Sonica loves the bottom.
I'm sorry. I didn't think her lipstick. she was lipstick eligible.
I don't think so either.
but
she was in the bottom.
She was in the bottom, and we go. The bottom is the bottom.
Right.
Of course, I doubt anybody voted for Sonique. I highly doubt that. They show who voted for who in Untucked, but I stopped watching Untucked after they had the non-binary conversation because that's all I was there for.
Okay.
So Scarlett goes home, and that's because Ginger won the lip sync.
I don't like this
against Mayhem, which I think Ginger did win the lip sync against Mayhem. That was a
very
fun
good
song,
lip sync,
and Ginger did a really good job. And the way Ginger and Mayhem worked together was
Yes.
also really good. Shout out for Ginger for throwing her big ass on the floor, because big people getting on the floor for a performance can sometimes be a bit of a scary moment.
Right.
And she did her thing.
Yeah, Ginger was like, "I'm coming for this $30,000," and
she gave away $2,500. That still leaves her with $25,000. Season 1, BB Zahara Benet won $20,000 for winning the whole competition.
Isn't that crazy? Like, this is wild.
And the prize money still ain't enough for All Stars, because you telling me I win $100,000 if I win a regular season, but yet I win $100,000 if I win the All-Star season. Like,
right, and this is much more complicated than a regular season.
Yeah, so that's the way the cookie crumbles. I think we're getting to the point in the competition where enough girls are gone that competition will get a lot more stiff and a lot more fierce, even though we know they're going to do the thing where somebody gets to come back, which is typically just an episode to watch a bunch of lip syncs.
Those are usually my favorite ones, though.
Because I don't have to pay attention as close to the screen for like the little narratives and all the different stuff. And lip sync is really easy to tell like that was a flop or that was not.
Yeah, it's an episode full of action for me, and that's what I like.
And this season has some good lip syncers that aren't a lot of the kicks and splits and dips kind, but a lot more of the storytelling lip syncers. So it'll be fun to see that, because I'm not a big fan of Eureka, but Eureka's a strong lip syncer. Trinity is a consummate lip sync artist. Kylie can do backflips and all that stuff, so it'll be fun to see. And then Scarlett is a costume queen, so she's gonna have costumes that do fun tricks and stuff like that, so that'll be fun to see. And I'm excited to see Silky lip sync, because Silky had that really bad lip sync against Nina West, but she came back for the finale and she had a really good lip sync against Brooklyn Heights. She gave a show.
Yeah, she definitely held her own. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
All right, hey everybody.
Somebody I'm dating pointed out up until this week that all the queens that have left have been queens of color. Up until this week, because we know Scarlett went home. She's lily white.
Well, they put a lot of black people and black and brown people on this season, so it was bound to happen.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, and he was like, "There's only like 5 or 6 white queens." I was like, "But if we were judging the competition fairly, like we talked about a few minutes ago, then one of the white queens would have been out of here by now."
But that they need people to keep watching the show.
And that's a shame. That is the benchmark for viewership, is keeping the white queens around. But whatever.
I mean, this is why Silky didn't, and this is why Silky and Akira didn't vote for Jan.
This is why Silky ain't worked in a year.
Okay, so it is what it is. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another week of Drag from the Left, your digital series where we discuss RuPaul's Drag Race from a radical leftist perspective as well as relevant social issues. I am your hostess with the mostest, the very Reverend Dr. Juanita Bindum.
Hi, y'all. It's Avery. Thanks for tuning in once again.
Be sure to follow us online at Drag from the Left. That's DRAGFTL, and we'll see you right here next week. Bye.
Y'all be easy.
You've been listening to Drag from the Left.
Drag FTL?
Yes, my love, we have fun, but we do discuss socio-political issues from a radical leftist perspective. And the goal of the show is to educate our community about radical black feminist politics in the hope of liberating our hearts and minds. We are artists, activists, and educators. We hope you had fun, and we hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at DragFTL. Till next time.